Now, I'd be dishonest if I really didn't say that Korn weren't a huge part of my childhood. I picked up on them after a friend introduced me to them in about the third grade. And as I went through puberty, the music that they had really kind of spoke to me. I mean, they're really kind of the patron saints of angry white boys who like metal instead of rap. And over time, my music taste has definitely changed, and I kind of outgrew the band overall because they kind of stayed in their comfort zone, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. They pioneered a sound, they did what they did, and they did it well most of the time. I felt like, however, that sound was kind of growing stale, and they weren't really doing anything with it, and really following their album Untouchables, they started to kind of just stay stuck, and everything they produced after that really just felt pretty stale until they got to the album Korn 3, Remember Who You Are, which I felt like actually kind of brought them back to their roots a bit and did what they did, and was actually, the execution of that was absolutely fantastic. I think they really pulled it off, and it sounded like something that they would have put out in the late 90s or early 2000s, and that kind of brings us to their newest album, which is called The Serenity of Suffering. Based on the singles that had released before this album, I wasn't really expecting much. The single, for instance, Rotting in Vain, kind of had this really awesome intro that felt like Korn being Korn, and I loved it. And then it got to the chorus where everything just really fell apart and just didn't fit with each other. And, Korn are at their best when they're laying down these thick bass lines and heavy guitar riffs and the kind of choppy guitar riffs that you expect from them. While nothing really experimental and nothing complex or intricate, they have a way of making very simple sounds catchy and heavy and actually interesting to listen to. And a lot of the songs on here just don't fit in with that. Thankfully, there are a few songs on here, at least, that do kind of bring back that old Korn feel, like the song The Hating, for instance, which is just executed perfectly by this band. The verses are suitably heavy. The chorus actually kind of comes off as fitting and not whining like a lot of the other songs do on here. Another thing for the song Take Me, which is probably its best at its chorus, when it goes away from the heaviness a bit and everything kind of just opens up and they're all willing to kind of put themselves out there in their sound. And that's something I really like about that track, for instance. The rest of the album does not fare that well. It's, unfortunately, a lot of the songs are just not that interesting to listen to. They come off as stale and boring. And it's unfortunate because the individual elements are there. The guitars sound good on some of the songs, the bass sounds perfect on some of the songs, and the vocal work sounds good. It's just when they're all together and they all come together, they don't work well. It feels like they're fighting each other, like they're all creating a different song, and they're not on the same page in terms of what it should sound like or how it should be. And that's on top of the traditional Korn cringeworthy lyrics and things that I can kind of get past at times. It's just that there's nothing else there that kind of overpowers it or overcomes that, and it just falls apart overall. Ultimately, this album just isn't that great. I mean, if you're a Korn fan like me in the past and you're looking to kind of get back into them, or you're just trying to check up and see how are they doing, are they creating anything worth it, this really isn't going to help you at all. I mean, you're going to hear some things that you may have liked in the past, but just not overall, and just not the whole package that you may expect. If you're a current Korn fan, or if you've stayed with them over the years, this probably will satisfy you. I mean, it's kind of fairly by the numbers overall for the band. You get mostly what you would expect. It's just not executed well, but you're not really missing out on anything if you skip this album. And anybody who's not a fan of the band or didn't really care for them in the past, this really isn't going to change your mind.